Good morning, Morgan. How are you, girl?
I'm good, Sunshine. How are you?
I'm very, very good. Listen, everybody, welcome to the Getting to After podcast. My name is Chatone Morrison. I'm the Princess of Positivity, and this is my co-host. Go ahead and introduce yourself, girl.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Morgan Bustos. It's good to see you today.
You know, it's a funny thing when we decided to do this series, Love Doesn't Hurt. So many things came up. Like we wanted to do a 4-week series. We had like how many? 8 weeks of content. It's like endless things we want to talk about. But for these next 2 weeks, for this week and for next week, we really kind of want to bring things together. And specifically because, Morgan has a lot to say on a topic of trauma, especially in the family. So we wanted to bring this together. But Morgan, before we ever get started, for those of you who may not know, I'm not new to this. I'm true to this. Okay. So even before you and I were really friends, Morgan, like years ago, if anyone's an old head, you may know something about Periscope. You may know a little something about old school live streaming. And back in the day, right in this very office, back there, I used to put my phone in a corner and I used to go live on an app called Periscope. And it was really one of the first live streaming platforms when platforms were coming up and going away. And it's before Twitter had it, which I know it's now X, whatever. And I used to go live, and every single day I had a different reason for going live. And on Fridays, I had something called the Friday Night Family Scope. And, shout out to anyone who happened to have been back there. Like, definitely drop a comment if you're like, I remember those. It was an exciting time to Morgan because at that time, it was really about helping parents, moms and dads. And mostly we talk about moms, but helping them to reconnect and create that time with their kids. Because so many times our young people, mine were much younger at that time, but even your young adults, these like late teens that we have in early 20s, it's helping them to navigate things that are happening, opening up lines of communication and making sure they stay open. So what I loved about those scopes was that I would create these topics. And this is before I was doing things like I wasn't brave enough to do tapping live. Like I wouldn't do grounding back then. Like I was really nervous and I had a million notes and stuff like that. Like I had all these index cards, I was new to the game, but I did it. I got so much feedback from parents saying, thank you for reminding me that my children are important. I would say things like, go knock on that door. I know they're behind that door playing Roblox. That's okay. Go knock on that door. You know, Morgan, you know about them Roblox days, right? Knock the door down. You have to, right? And so today we're going to be talking about some of those tools that will help us, but especially when there's been a situation where love has hurt in the family. Sometimes, like in your case, Morgan, it's just all about keeping the kids safe. Then once they're safe and you're at that baseline, then what?
Like, how do you help them heal? Yeah.
So that's something that, I thought today we could talk about. And then next week, we're going to really bring everything together and do a summary of what we've discussed through this past, several weeks, and then give some ideas about what you can do moving forward. If you see yourself in any of this, if you see signs, red flags, a signature, an emotional signature of some of this stuff happening, we want to make sure in getting the after, we do support midlife women. It is about giving you a place of empowerment, giving you a place of strength, and a place to just be yourself. That's why we come up here every Monday morning, 8 a.m. Eastern, to give you that place. But then also, we're incorporating grounding, centering, breathing exercise, and of course, our favorite emotional freedom technique. So we want you to know that it's not just all about you, but because many of us are moms, it is about our kids too. And I will say that Morgan was like, we're not leaving this month, Chatone, unless we talk about the kids. I was like, okay.
I was like, we gotta talk about the babies. Come on. They need love too.
So yes, yeah. And so, we can't ignore that if we've been hurt and if we've been hurting, whether or not we think we've hid that from our young ones, young adults, whatever, we probably haven't. Even if you're pregnant and you're carrying a child, they're feeling it.
Every part.
Right? Because they carry the DNA, they carry that, the cellular memories are in them. And sometimes we think we've covered it over and we're good. And actually we haven't. We haven't.
Also,
So
that right
that's what
there,
this episode is all about. Go ahead, babe.
that right there is a whole nother episode that we have to do, because that gets deep. That gets deep
Yes,
about,
very quickly, very
yeah.
quickly, very quickly. So, we've been incorporating grounding. I've been loving it. For those of you who haven't, watched us in the past, we've been incorporating grounding, a way of centering yourself, a way of being present. And if you're driving and you're listening to us, don't do it.
Mm-mm.
Okay,
Nope.
don't do it. We're going to tell you stuff like close your eyes and breathe real deep. Don't do that. We don't want you to get real relaxed while you're in traffic. Okay, but once you get to your destination, you may want to just take a moment and just allow yourself that time. And as a side note, I want to mention this, Morgan. For me personally, there are things I have to do in my life, in my daily routine, that cause stress, that I know is going to cause stress. I have implemented an exercise of, or rather a system of, more time, so that I have time at my destination to park my car and do some of this work.
Hmm.
It's amazing. If you have white coat syndrome, another episode. If you have things like you have to be with a toxic person, and you know that you've got to get through that meeting, but
Yeah.
they are toxic, you arrive in advance or be around the corner and do a little bit of this. So these will be up here. You can always come back, bookmark these, and go ahead and do some of these groundings and some of these emotional freedom technique tapping transformations, so that it can get you prepared and ready and relaxed and your most empowered self if you
Mm.
got to do hard things.
Well, and it's also a really good reset at the end of the day, just to let go of
Oof,
everything that you were carrying, so you're not carrying it overnight into your next day too.
yeah. Yeah. And you can rest better, right? So I know you're going to get us into some grounding real quick.
Yeah.
Um, and I know that you said you wanted this to be something that parent moms could do with their teens if they wanted to. So why don't you go ahead and get us into some grounding? So everyone, get yourself together for this. Morgan's going to do some breathing, some grounding. If you've never tried it before, it's very powerful. And her voice is one of the most soothing you'll ever hear. So you go and do your thing, girl.
Get yourself into a comfortable position. If you can, take off your shoes, put your feet flat on the ground, and then even if you're standing, if that feels better, go ahead and do that too. If you'd like to, I invite you to go ahead and close your eyes if you feel safe doing that, or just keep a really soft, relaxed gaze. So we're going to take a deep breath in through our nose, and then we're going to let your belly expand. So soften your belly and let it expand, taking that deep, deep breath. And then we're going to hold it for a moment, and then exhale slowly through our mouth. Okay. And then we're going to repeat this 3 times. All right. You ready? All right. All right. We're going to breathe in and out. And in and out. And again, we're going to breathe in and out. In this moment, I want you just to acknowledge where you are. Just feel your body, bring awareness to right where you are in this moment. Feel your body up against the surface of your chair, where you're resting. Notice that if your skin feels the coolness on it, the sounds around you, and just embrace what's racing through your mind and say, it's okay. Notice it. And then let's go back to our breath and pay attention to where your breath is. Okay. So it's really beautiful, because instead of pushing these emotions away, we're going to let them surface right now. We're going to acknowledge them, even if there's sadness, frustration, anger, it doesn't matter what it is. I just want you to simply acknowledge it, realize that it doesn't have any power over you, and then say in your mind or out loud, I'm allowed to feel this way. I don't have to fix this right now, and I'm safe in this moment. So if this feels too overwhelming for you, I want you to go ahead and return back to your breath. Just take another deep breath in. And let it out. For right now, we're just going to take whatever emotion that is. We're just going to push it to the side and let it sit for a moment. I want you to picture this emotion that you're holding. Maybe if it's a heavy weight, just let it go. Let it rise into a cloud above you. Let it float away. Imagine placing it to the side. Just enjoy where you are right this second and the calmness that you feel within your soul. Say, I honor what I feel, but I don't have to carry it all right now. I give myself permission to breathe, to rest, and just to be. Take another deep breath in through your nose, feeling your lungs expand. Hold that for a moment, and then exhale slowly through your mouth. Simultaneously, you can wiggle your fingers, feel your feet on the ground, and when you're ready, you can open your eyes and bring your awareness back to this room. Just remember that you're safe in this moment, and you're allowed to feel what you feel, and that you're not alone. How do you feel, baby?
That was so good.
Did you like it? That was pretty good, right?
Thank you. That was a good one. That was a good one.
Thank
You
you.
know, anyone who doesn't do this work is just missing it. They're missing it.
I really appreciate like how we changed things up a little bit this time and how we're doing it at the beginning, because I don't know
Yeah,
about you, but this even helps me like de-stress before we do this,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
It calms my nervous system down by helping you guys calm down. And then
Yeah,
it just makes
it's
everything,
true.
it's great.
It's funny because, for anyone who's never tried doing live streaming or doing a podcast or something, the reason we're here is to create information that is accessible, that's needed for midlife women, right? And so
Mhm.
because we have so many pressures and so many things we've got on us, it is really imperative to us. Like we really want to make sure that you get what you need. Like it's deep for us. Like we're not trying to just be like, just throw some information out there. We do research. We're not necessarily an expert on every single thing we talk about. We're experts in grounding and tapping and coaching. But some of the topics are deep topics, right? And so we're doing research to make sure that we're giving you everything you need. In fact, today, as we talk about this, one of the things, Morgan, I know for you, that you have experienced a bit of this. So you didn't need to go to school for this, although you lived through some of this. What happens when a parent or an authority figure is actually causing harm. So when we start to think about what our kids need to heal from, this has been your experience. And for anyone who has not subscribed to our magazine, I'm actually going to throw the link up real quick. Our next magazine will be, it's late. Like, I'm just going to tell you now, it's late. All right. So a lot has happened in the past 6 weeks. It was supposed to be out by January 15th. It didn't get out. It'll be out soon though. So and look, I give myself grace for that. It happened, right? We are a very, 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 very small business. All right. But it's important. And so we're still going to get it out to you. You can go ahead and you can sign up at go by bit.ly/G2A mag.launch dash launch. And in that particular episode, in that particular e-zine, this one that's coming up, we're going to be talking about what does it look like to create a podcast like this, and through the things that we're going through as women, through midlife women with kids and multiple things pulling at us. Why do we do what we do? How are we keeping it up? I think this is maybe episode 26. So it doesn't seem like a whole lot. It's not hundreds and thousands, but for us, for what we went through in the period of time that we started it, October to January, is always going to be the toughest period of time for Morgan. Tough. And because we're best friends, it's tough for me too, by osmosis, okay, by association. So we're going to go through what does that look like. So if you're like, I'm kind of interested in starting something like that, make sure you sign up, because we're going to just go through real life, what it's been like, what does it take, and not a training on doing it, but so that you can look and see, I have a message, I have something I want to share. And so you can get into that. All right. But go ahead, Morgan, and kind of lead this conversation about, understanding the impact of what happens with kids. And you can, of course, talk from your own experience.
I think one of the biggest things that's been affecting us lately is how hard it is when you feel betrayed by your parent. Because they're as a mother and father, like it's our job to protect our kids. Like we have one job, it's to give them direction, to teach them, to educate them spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, financially, and to give them all of that. And so when you have a parent or parents that are not filling your basic needs, and then they use it as a way to like weaponize their love or to cut you deeper, it's
Yeah.
a whole nother kind of pain. It's a whole nother kind of hurt, you know? And especially, well, it's crazy because I'll just speak from my experience just for a second. It's hard when you're a mom and you're married to an abuser, right? And you're trying to compensate, but yet
Mm,
and to try to like cover up their errors or make it excuses for their errors, but you know it's wrong. So then you
yeah.
have like this shame and guilt within
Yeah.
yourself. And then you're sending
Because
your
you don't feel truthful.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
so hard, like, constantly having to live this lie, and then your kids see that, right? And so then you're teaching them not to acknowledge their own truth and to push it down and not to they're to ignore their own nervous system. That
Exactly.
makes sense? Like, did I get
A
that out?
big one.
It's
No, you that's so deep,
because you're seeing all this stuff going on, right? But then my
and
mom's
you're
telling
feeling it.
yeah, 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 like, in your tummy?
You're like, "But I don't feel that." It's
Yeah,
like, "No, I didn't hit you.
yeah,
You
yeah.
don't feel pain."
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So it's like my children were seeing this going on. They're seeing how horrible their father's actions are. And then here's mommy, I'm seeing it. They're seeing me respond to that. And I have fear. I'm scared. I'm seeing them respond to it. So they have fear. But then I'm like, no, everything's okay. So then there's a sense of like betrayal to your children. So they're trying
Yeah.
to like to understand that and try to figure out everything too. And then trying to understand and teach them that healing's different for everybody.
Yeah.
You know, all of like what you have to go through to get to a healthy, safe spot is completely different as a child compared to an adult because our brain development is different,
That's
right?
right. That's
So
right.
so
And the experience is different too, so
yeah, like exactly because as a child you're innocent, you know, you're more
yeah.
innocent and don't have the life skills to navigate through all of that, right? So it's a lot harder to it's just lot harder to navigate through, you know?
Yeah.
I really loved this analogy that I heard this one time, and it was talking about how ignoring childhood pain is kinda like a scratch on a vinyl record, and if you don't smooth it out, it destroys every future song that's played, right? Like, think about it. Like, I remember vinyls back in my day, and it's true.
That's
It
that
just
hurts me so bad because I used to have that penny on the arm of the record player, then the penny would fall off and make more scratches.
right?
Isn't that what it's like, right? Like, if you try to compensate with different things, like, I think about a lot of times with, well, I can talk from my experience, and it wasn't necessarily my parents, what they did to me in particular, but sometimes it's what they allowed other people to do, and they were all words, but it was a lot of, very brutal things that were said to me about my physical body. So that's how I grew up hating my body and really having a lot of self-loathing
Mhm.
because of what was allowed, you know? And so what happens is the compensation for that scratch, you put a penny on it. So what was the compensation? Eat more. What was the compensation? You know, be extremely overly like crazy perfectionist, an
Yeah.
overachiever to the highest degree. So what does that do? Create more scratches.
Mm.
You know, so it's like, you know, I love that analogy because it goes on so many levels of then what? And then what? And there's always another then what, but it's never good.
Mhm. Well, and then that
Yeah.
shapes your future relationships.
Yeah.
Because you already put that pattern in, it's grounded deeply ingrained in you.
Yeah.
So then it
Yeah.
almost sets you up to fail, you know?
Yeah.
You know, until you reroute the synapses in your brain and start healing from that. So
Yeah.
it takes time. It takes time. And then we like I said, we all heal differently. And what works for
Right.
me may not work for you. What works for an adult may not work for a child the same way. You have to use different
Or different children.
oh, yeah.
So in your case, you've got more than one child, and so I think that that's something too, like, parents often, you know, we it would be great if one size fits all. Like, one size fits all, when I see that, I know already it ain't gonna fit me. Like, I already know. I'm like, one size fit most, so then they change that, right, to one size fits most. I like that,
Mhm.
then it still doesn't fit, right? So as moms, one of the things I like about even the grounding you went through, that is a grounding you can go through with your kids. And you can also amend some of that. You can change some of that in order to help them calm down. And I've talked before about how with my daughter, when she was young, she was having, this was simple, but she was having anxiety with math. And
Mm.
so at that time, at that age, I wasn't doing tapping yet. I didn't know about that yet, but I do knew about breathing techniques. I knew about grounding and I knew about essential oils. And
Yeah.
so I would ground my kid around her math. I would ground her with deep breathing and with, I've mentioned before what she called her weed rag, which was really just a bandana of mine filled with essential oil that she kept in a Ziploc. Okay. That she called a weed rag. Shout out to you, Kate. And so, but she knew that if she didn't even, if she just held the little bandana, right? We had created positive triggers for her that
Oh,
said, I can do math. I am more successful than I think. It's not that hard for me. And my girl went from like a low C to an A in fourth grade because we ingrained in her by that practice, by the listen, that's not easy to do with a 9 or 10-year-old looking at you like you're nuts, right? We have to let go of all of what we think is weird and be willing to do it anyway for the good of our kids.
I think that was like, first of all, I just took away so much for that. Because I always use the word trigger as a negative toning, like
It's
intonation
not
towards
always.
it can be a good thing. Like that just stood out to me
Well, I
too.
think they call it something else. They call it, there's a trigger is negative. I think they call it a glimmer. I think I've heard the word glimmer. I've got to look it up. There's always new terms coming up. So someone let me know if that's right or wrong. I think it's glimmer. When a trigger is always thought of being negative, if something happens that actually leads to a positive, I think they call it a glimmer. I'm not sure. I think I heard that somewhere. But the bottom line is a trigger, right? All a trigger does is turn something on. So we can turn good stuff on too, you
Yeah.
know. Um, which leads me to think about, as you mentioned, you have different children, different ages. They experience different things when you were going through some of your trauma,
Mhm.
and your escape from your husband. And also, um, everyone wasn't there for every single situation. And
Yeah.
you protected, say, your daughter from things because she was so much younger. So she
Mm.
doesn't even have those memories cognitively, but they're still in here.
Mhm.
And that's one of the reasons why emotional freedom technique works so well. You don't even have to, with EFT, go into the actual situation. You can have it process and release in the background. And,
Mm.
and so we'll talk about some of that when we go through our tapping transformation today. What's so interesting is that so many times as moms, when we're so, so busy, especially if you happen to be a single mom, that, and even if you're not a single mom, because let's face it, a lot of the nurturing comes from the mom. What happens is that you are trying to see, how can I get everyone into one bag? Like, it's like when you're traveling, you're trying to get all the toys in one suitcase, right? And it doesn't work. So when our young ones, when our girls, let's say, for example, they internalize their pain, the love that has hurt them in many different ways than,
Mm.
say, a boy would. So let's say for our girls, they may have a lot of self-doubt. They find themselves over apologizing. And I know that you experience that because sometimes it still crops up with you, Morgan. Like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, right? Can I just tell you, as a weirdo, because I'm a little weird, I am that person that, like, if I'm in a store and I just happen to walk by someone and they're like, and nothing happened. Like, I'm sorry. I'm like, no, you're not. Why? Don't say that.
Mm.
Like, I just be coaching all through the Target. It's like, don't say.
Yeah.
You don't need to be sorry, sweetheart, just because you walk through the door the same time as me and our cards touch. It's, you don't do that. Your body is like, oh, I'm always sorry. I'm always sorry. I'm always sorry. That is something that literally starts in childhood. And for our girls, it
Mm.
makes and I think the midlife generation, especially because we're still being taught to kind of show up a little bit more, but also still be, not, it's kind of like the middle. Like, I'm Gen X, like, I'm totally Gen X. And we were really told still that seen, not heard, be a
Mm.
good girl, coming off the baby boomers, be a good girl. But the thing is now that, coming into the millennials, coming into midlife, that idea of over apologizing, seeking validation. Am I okay? Am I okay? Very different from our boys because our boys are going to have more external, right? They're going to be angry. They're going
Right?
to act out. Where our girls will be, like I mentioned for myself, be a perfectionist. I got to get straight A's no matter what. I'm not going to sleep. The boys like, school, get out of my face, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's their way of acting out, right? Have you seen any of this? Like this that difference?
Complete difference. I was just like, when you were talking about that, I was like going through some of my kids, how they all do these different things when and it is a form of acting out. But let me back up for just a second, because I remember where I was sitting. I was sitting in my car next to a park. I had just gone to McDonald's and got some oatmeal with some raisins in it. And I was talking to you. It was when we Voxed back in the day, right?
Yeah,
And we
wow. You go way back.
And and I remember I was eating it and I was leaving you a message and you sent me back a message and you're like, "Baby, just," she's like, "You're like, you don't need to apologize. You don't need to apologize every 5 seconds." And then I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And you're like, you just did again," right? Until somebody brought it to my attention, I never put anything to it. I was so used to having to
Yeah,
apologize for everything all the time. And then I noticed my kid was doing it.
yeah.
Right? And so then I had to bring it to his attention, and I was like, "My son, you didn't," he
You didn't
always
do
says,
anything.
my apologies." And I was like, "Baby boy, why are you apologizing? We're
Yeah.
having a
And
conversation."
it's a learned behavior,
Yeah.
and it's also a trauma response. And so that's why it's so important. That's
Mhm.
why we're here, because sometimes you may not notice what it is. And so when you see those things and you notice them, we're going to try and give you some tools to know what to do with that. Because otherwise, you could miss it. You may think it's just normal, or in our girls, they may all of a sudden start putting on weight, right? Or start losing a lot of weight, or not be interested in the foods they were interested in for, or suddenly be interested in a whole lot of exercise, or our boys may be like, I don't care about you, and I don't care about this, and I don't love you, and like those really
Mhm.
hard things that you're like, that, what happened to you? And
Yeah.
then some experts may say, oh, it's just hormones.
Mm.
Maybe, maybe not. And so the more knowledge, right? They say that, knowledge is power. So the more knowledge you have, the more easy it is, or uncomplicated it is, to parent the best way you possibly can, but we have to acknowledge it first. And I think no matter what, our kids need those safe spaces. And even if they call you weird, like, come, baby, let's do some breathing, right? Let's just breathe. I've been noticing a lot on, because now the little ones, right, Generation Alpha, these little teeny ones, are going back and they're basically coaching their parents, right? And so they'll be like, Mom, you should breathe right now. You're two. You just learned how to breathe on your own last week. What are we doing right now, right? But they're
They're
that
weird.
smart. They're
They're
that
weird.
smart and aware that there's like, I don't like how I feel inside, right? And so even though it's a little weird to be taught to breathe by like a 3 or 4 year old, it's just weird. I just have to stop right there. It's
But
weird, okay?
but
But
it helps.
wow, for the acknowledgement and the awareness.
Mm,
So we have to be that many steps ahead for our older kids as well. Um, And that makes me think about what happens when they do need therapy, what happens when they need
mm.
more. I remember when I think I was in 6th grade, so going into middle school, and I recognized I needed more. This is a long time ago, right? And
Yeah.
especially in the Black community, therapy was like, we don't do therapy, right? And so I knew I was never going to be able to go to therapy as a kid, but I knew I needed it even at 12, 13 years old. I knew that I did not feel right. I didn't feel stable. The life that I had, I should have felt happier, and I was so deep in, like, really not liking myself that it didn't feel normal, but there was no one to talk about that with, so that's how I became, like, I don't know, a psychologist by 14, because I read every book, I did all the research, because I was trying to cure myself because I didn't have a place to talk about what was going on with me until I was an adult. Um,
Well,
But
and
therapy can be a comfortable topic. It can be something that you can talk about with your kids, especially if you ascertain if they need it. It can
mm.
be a comfortable topic.
Well, and then I know, like, with our culture, that it was almost like taboo to, like, go and get
Exactly.
external help, right? Like, it's like, you don't have enough faith in your God, obviously, like, that kind of
Yeah,
feeling, like, pray
yeah,
more. Of course I
yeah,
pray. I pray incessantly all day. I have a running monologue going on with my God. But there is that point where you realize something something's got to give.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you know to your core when something's off. Just like if you know you're hungry,
Yeah.
you need to go get something to eat. I remember there's this analogy, right? And it talks about how getting therapy is like glasses for your mind. It helps you to see things clearly so you don't keep bumping into the same issue. Chatone,
Boom.
when I read that, what else is there to say? Like
Yep.
we don't want to stub
Yep.
we all stub our toes. And
Yep.
we know how that
It
hurts.
hurts.
Why do we wanna keep doing that over and over again? So, like, I know with my kids, introducing them to therapy was a challenge. It honestly
Yeah.
was a challenge. So, there's even been times when, like, my children have felt like it was a form of punishment to have to go to
Mhm.
therapy, and I had to tell them, "Baby, like, this is your safe place. This is a good thing," you know? And then there's even been times where they're like, "Well, I don't even really talk, or I don't have anything to say." Or the other person's doing more talking than I am, and I'm like,
Yeah, but it's
"Okay,
getting
but
through.
something's establishing. You're establishing that connection with the person." And
That
then
rapport, yeah.
yeah, and then they walk out of there lighter. They walk
Yep.
out smiling. They
See,
walk
they don't know that because they haven't lived long enough to have that experience. That's why I call myself an old soul. How did I know at 12 that I needed that? And I
yeah,
didn't get it until after Caitlin was born, you know what I mean? Like, I waited so, 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 so long. That and I'm not talking about you have the medication, maybe you need that, maybe you don't, but I think that if we can help that is one of the things. If there has been if love has been hurting, the only way that it can be cured is if there's acknowledgement. And if you don't feel safe to acknowledge that with, of course, with the abuser, but maybe not with mom either, because maybe you're afraid. I mean, there's so much fear wrapped up with our young people about what can I share? What is safe? What is okay? And, you know, if if there's no sharing and there's no honesty and everything is secretive,
yeah,
then that's gonna get carried on. That's gonna get carried on into their lives, and the whole goal of doing this series of What Love Doesn't Hurt is to bring to the fore, like, am I seeing some of this in my life? Am I experiencing some of this? Is to help us as moms, as women, especially in midlife, to realize that sometimes we're missing things. Sometimes we're accepting the status quo or accepting it for our young people, and we could do better. We could
you
do
know
better.
what's interesting too? There's been moments where my children I could see them hesitating, like, saying things to me because they didn't
Mhm.
want me to feel like I wasn't doing my best, right?
Yeah,
And
they're
so
so
then
sweet.
it made me realize, like, it's first of all, it's not your job to parent me, that's my job,
Yeah,
but when you have this kind of trauma, there is sometimes
there
that
is a lot of that. Yeah.
block
Yeah, yeah,
going,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, like, then there's also reestablishing, like, it's your turn to heal.
It's you, right. And
Yeah.
then that's a especially
You
with boys, it's like,
whoop, yep.
finding the man.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a tough
especially when
one.
you're taller than you know? But just to know that sometimes our kids they can love us so much that they don't wanna hurt us, so they do
Yeah.
need that safe place. They do need to be able to go to therapy and have the person where they can release all their emotions without worrying about, "Am I gonna hurt my mom's feelings with the truth?"
Yes,
You know?
that's right.
And because that's a part
So
of the human.
I love how you've done that with your kiddos because, um, many people I mean, what you've been through, murder, suicide, these different things, your kids seeing that, being aware of that, running, hiding, um, whether they experience the physical abuse themselves, the residual of that doesn't disappear. The residual of that isn't unfelt,
Mm,
and it will keep being felt unless they have an opportunity, and it could be years. But the beautiful part is that when there's the acceptance and comfort level that this is what we do. Like, we would never pray away a broken arm or broken elbow. So,
mm.
prayer, of course, you and I are both extremely spiritual people. So, all of those things too. But I'm not for nothing, but if you're constipated, you might pray, but you also need some Metamucil. I'm just saying, like, sometimes you got to get it out. Okay. I'm just saying. Okay. Just saying. Sometimes, it's my job to make you laugh. It's
I
my
love
job to
you.
lighten
I
things
love
up.
you. Mm,
Sometimes you got to get it out. All right. And so
yeah.
that is what, I mean, I don't know if therapy's ever been analyzed in such a way to say it's like pooping, but I'm just saying that sometimes we got to get it out however that happens. Sometimes. And so if we can normalize that and not make it seem judgy or weird or punishment or anything, that when they're taking it, no, sweetheart, no, this is what we do. We're healing
Make
now.
it normal. Make it the new normal to go and get the emotional help that you need. Just like you
I
said.
think it is the new normal in some cultures. And I think our cultures are catching up. It's catching up.
Mhm,
But I think that there's still some stigma around it sometimes.
mhm,
So I appreciate that. And also, I think when we start thinking about when maybe it could be that we're still in relationships that are toxic
mm,
and our kids may be older, right? So what happens when a child is 20, 21, and they don't actually even live with you, or there's visitation or things like that where they come back and they've got this toxicity all over them. It's like, well, it's so funny when I'm very, very sensitive to smells, right? So when if someone's painting or they've been doing paint, like I know you do a lot of oil painting and stuff like that, like I
mhm,
couldn't be around you after that. You'd have to shower and take off your clothes because I am so sensitive to smells that would make it could be, you could have painted in the morning. My body is still going to take that in. That's just, I'm super sensitive to smells.
mhm,
So sometimes we'll notice, and I'm sure you've seen that, especially recently, that when our young people and us too as women, when we associate, and we have to associate with someone who's toxic or say narcissistic or someone who has harmed us in the past, then you come back and it's like, uh, uh, I don't feel so good, but then
mm.
they may not want to talk to you about it. So there is ways of having conversations that help our young people, our young adults to kind of check in and have awareness and create boundaries. Boundaries are super hard right now in 2025 for our young people. Generation Z, forget it. I don't know what Generation Alpha, the little kids, I don't know what they're going to have as far as boundaries. They may not talk to anyone, okay? But boundaries right now for our young people because it's constant. And you got to know where my locations are. Like, why is your friend need to know where you are? I don't understand. Like, I don't want anyone to know where I am.
Thank you. Call me. If you wanna know where I'm at, ask me. Where Mo, where you at?
Where you at? Now you do know that sometimes I do want to know where you are. I'm checking, But I mean like those boundaries. So I mean I think we don't want to alienate them, but helping them to understand that creating healthy boundaries is okay. And I like this idea. I had done some research and I thought, okay, so if you have an older child that is if we know for sure they're with a toxic, not an abusive parent, but someone that maybe has like a lot of negative energy, a lot of, that kind of really negative narcissistic or always talking about you, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Instead of getting in a conversation, I learned this from my mother-in-law, instead of saying, your father is this, and that, instead of doing that, have the agreement that you're going to check in. So when they finish being with that person or in that toxic situation, this even happens if they're in school with teachers, having them, right? Isn't it good? That's why I do the research, girl.
Whoa.
Having them check in. So it's funny that the research taught me this, but the truth is I was already doing this. My son had a very toxic teacher in elementary school that blamed him for everything. And I had to go peep with my eye to see that she was just literally bullying my son. I have no idea why. Was it prejudice? Was it racism? I have no idea. But and I believe in the authority figure. I didn't check right away. Come to find out, my son was innocent, right? So what we had to create in place was no matter what, could do a color change, and he was this and that. Every day, I wouldn't look at the book that said how miserable he was.
Right?
Talk to me about your day, sweetheart. And I would know from his body language, the way he would come around the corner from the bus and walk up to the house, it used to break our hearts. Me, my mother-in-law, and my daughter used to sit there, and if the slower he walked, we knew it was a bad day. But I started learning that let me do a check-in with him. Let me love him first before disciplining him. Let me let him talk it out first before I listen to somebody else's side and empower him to say,
Mhm.
Mom, this doesn't feel right. I don't like how this feels. Or asking the question, honey, every time you come home from this situation, you seem so drained. It could even be friends, even
Mhm.
friendships. You seem dark and drained and you don't seem happy. Like you were just out doing like this fun activity. What's going on? We need to help our young people have the words, the power. If we can model it for ourselves by saying what we need to say, we can teach, especially our girls, to
Mm.
say what they need to say so that they're not,
Mhm. Mhm.
it's not good enough. That's not good
Well,
enough.
and I like how you said you were doing that with your son because as a society
Yeah.
are taught to not talk about your emotions, not talk about your feelings, to act like you're not important, you don't have value, like you're just supposed to suck it up kind of thing. So I love how you said, "Let me love
Not
on,"
here.
right? Let me like acknowledge you first, your feelings, your
Yep.
emotions. Let me validate you and
Yep.
let you know that you're in a safe place and you're cared about. Because then from that, it's easier for a person to open up and talk to you.
Yes.
You know?
And that's the thing. I mean, look, we've been talking for the last few weeks about love doesn't hurt, but sometimes it does. So
Mhm.
if we acknowledge that sometimes it is, then someone's got to balance it off. Many times it is, excuse me, us as moms, but we need some tools to do that with. So I know that you had created a little list
Yeah.
to give some agencies some, I don't know, what, tell us
Yeah.
what you found.
Dude, so check this out. There's like these amazing things that I found. So there's a national parent helpline. Okay. So it's for emotional support and parenting resources. So I'm
Cool.
going to make sure that we put all of this in here so that
Okay,
they can.
great, 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 great. Yep.
There's also a Child Mind Institute, which is a mental health resource for parents
I've
and
heard of that one. Okay,
right.
cool. I've heard of that one. Yep.
Love is respect. Love,
Needed.
respect for young people in unhealthy relationships, including their families. So not just with a like a domestic,
Yes, yes.
boyfriend or girlfriend kind of thing. And then
Okay.
it's called so Nancy, Adam, Mary, I. Begins with an I.
What? What? What kind of airplane pilot? What in the world?
Let's try. I could not think of a name that began with I.
Try that again. What?
Again. So
Just tell us what it is.
NMI. So it's a national
NAMI. Okay.
national
What does it stand for?
national elite alliance on mental illness. Okay.
Oh, cool, cool, cool.
Because there can also
Okay.
be that underlying factor where people don't realize that they have a chemical imbalance, so they don't even know that things are going on. So that's a
Yeah. Yeah.
totally amazing way for you to have, family mental health
Oh, I
support.
love that. Okay.
Yeah. So those are
All right.
amazing.
So we'll definitely put those in the description box. I'll make sure I spell it out. I'm trying to give you a bunch of letters. All right. So listen, Morgan, this was good. I mean, I'm really happy that we got a chance to talk about this. You know, parents, moms, you don't have to fix everything.
Mm-mm.
One of the things that we do, and I'm always encouraging my daughter. I mean, here she is in her early 20s, and but it's like encouraging her to do tapping, to do it on her own. I mean, she knows all about it. Sometimes she forgets to do it. And one of the ways what we can do is we can help our kids by actually doing it with them. So
Mhm.
I've created a tapping transformation today that would be something that you could do with your young people. All right, Morgan. So I'm going to lead us on a little bit of tapping right now. This is a tapping that I created in a way that you could do with your teens, especially. This is for a little bit older child, I would say, or young adults. And again, too, even if you have, say, young adults that's in college, this is something you can do over the phone, or you can get on FaceTime or Zoom and do with them and say, hey, if you're noticing when you're talking to them, they seem like they're going through something. This is something that a lot of times as our kids get older and they leave the home, they're still stuck on some of the things that happened. And so it's important for us to listen, like really hear what's happening so that we can do our best to help them navigate. Um, Again, we've talked about therapy and all those things, but this is another way, just as the days are going by, that can help them. This can be done in such a way that you can do with them. You can both tap at the same time. You could say something like, when we tap, the other person can repeat, kind of thing like that, or it can be silent support where if your teen or young adult prefers, they can just tap along silently while the mom speaks, right? So there's so many different ways of doing it. You find out what's comfortable. A lot of times it's that last one. The young adult or the teen doesn't want to repeat because they feel kind of weird, and let them know in advance. You may have some emotions that come up. You may feel yourself getting chilly or hot, or on your neck, or you may feel a pain come through, and then you can express that so that we can help you to let that go. And again, and we'll put it up at the end of this tapping transformation. If you need assistance with this, we do invite you to work with us so that we can help you navigate how to do this. This one may be just a little bit long, but we're going to go ahead and do this together. This is again about unhealthy family dynamics. How do you help them to start thinking about healing from this? So let's just take a moment to take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth. And one of the things here we want to do is, we always use something called a subjective unit of distress. So if you're doing this and you're thinking about this, be thinking about, okay, well, I know that some things have happened. Where do you think you're at on that scale? Like, is it very, very high where you feel that it's been a lot of distress that you need to let go of, that it's been very unhealthy and you're holding on to that? Where are you on a scale of 0 to 10? And you can go ahead and give yourself a score. And we're going to go ahead and just start tapping. And we're going to start, as we always do, on the side of the hand, the karate chop point. So, Morgan, you're going to go ahead and do the tapping. I'm going to lead you through. We're going to start on the karate chop point. This part right here, you use your 4 fingers. Let me remove my gigantic ring. And we're just going to tap on the side of the hand. And you can repeat these statements as I make them.
Okay.
Even though I feel like I wasn't enough for them,
Even though I feel like I wasn't enough for them,
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
I deeply and completely love and accept myself.
Even though I never knew what version of them I was going to get,
Even though I never knew what version of them I was going to get,
I honor my emotions
I honor my emotions
and trust that I can create emotional safety for myself.
and trust that I can create emotional safety for myself.
And even though their words and actions made me doubt my worth,
And even though their words and actions made me doubt my worth,
I know I am worthy of love.
I know I'm worthy of love.
I am worthy of respect.
I'm worthy of respect.
And I'm worthy of emotional freedom.
And I'm worthy of emotional freedom.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and just start tapping through the different tapping points. So, first of all, we're going to start at the eyebrow point. I didn't always feel safe to be myself.
I didn't always feel safe to be myself.
Side of eye, sometimes I felt like I had to be perfect to be loved.
And sometimes I feel like I have to be perfect to be loved.
Under the eye, their words made me question my worth.
Their words made me question my worth.
Under the nose, I was told I'm too sensitive and my feelings don't matter.
I've been told I'm too sensitive and my feelings don't matter.
Chin point, I got used to pretending I was okay when I wasn't.
I got used to pretending I was okay when I'm not.
Collarbone, sometimes I wonder if I'll ever stop feeling this way.
Sometimes I wonder if I'll ever stop feeling this way.
Under the arm, I don't know how to trust love when it has hurt me before.
I don't know how to trust love when it's hurt me before.
Top of head, but I am open to healing
But I'm open to healing
and creating a new story for myself.
and creating a new story for myself.
Eyebrow point, I don't have to carry this forever.
I don't have to carry this forever.
Side of eye, I am not responsible for their words or actions.
I am not responsible for their words or their actions.
Under eye, I deserve to feel safe, seen, and valued. Under the nose, I trust myself to recognize healthy love.
I trust myself to recognize healthy love.
Chin, I am learning to protect my peace without guilt.
I am learning to protect my peace without guilt.
Collarbone, I am growing,
I am growing,
healing,
healing,
and becoming stronger every day.
and becoming stronger every day.
Under the arm, I'm willing to set boundaries that honor me.
I'm willing to set boundaries that honor me.
Top of head, I am reclaiming my emotional freedom.
I'm reclaiming my emotional freedom.
All right, let's do one more round. I am becoming safer each day.
I am becoming safer each day.
Side of I release what no longer serves me.
I release what no longer serves me.
Under I am worthy of love and respect.
I am worthy of love and respect.
Under the nose, I am open to trusting myself to make healthy choices.
I'm open to trusting myself to make healthy choices.
Chin, I am healing.
I am healing.
I am growing.
I am growing.
I am becoming stronger every day.
I am becoming stronger every day.
Collarbone, I am enough.
I am enough.
Just as I am.
Just as I am.
Underarm, I deserve relationships that feel safe and supportive.
I deserve relationships that are safe and supportive.
Top of head, I am free.
I am free.
I am whole.
I am whole.
I deserve to be loved.
And I deserve to be loved.
All right, let's take a deep breath in. Exhale slowly. And let's anchor this in with an affirmation. I am healing.
I am healing.
I am strong.
I am strong.
I am worthy of love and peace.
I am worthy of love and peace.
All right, good. All right, if you tapped with us, let us know how you felt about that. One of the reasons why this works, Morgan, for moms and for their young people is because it really addresses things that our kids may be facing. We may be able to say things or incorporate things based on things they've said a long time ago. Not like what they said yesterday, but incorporating things that we know that no one else, even a therapist, could incorporate because they're not with the kids as much as we've been with them. They haven't seen everything. And so we can incorporate that. We can also be adjacent to the therapist in helping them if we're open to it. It also helps them to support letting go of wounds from the past without forcing them to be in denial about them, which, as you mentioned, sometimes that's what's happening. There's this denial, or they're like denying their own sympathetic nervous system, like, what's going on here, right? And of course, we want to enforce or reinforce safety and self-worth as much as we possibly can. It's really important that we do that. So tell me how that one felt for you.
I released so much in that.
Wow.
It was very beautiful to be able to hear those words and hear my mouth say, like my voice saying them. And there's a couple
Yes.
I couldn't because
I
it was
know.
deep. So thank you. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
gonna make me cry. My makeup looks cute. Why are you gonna make me cry? It's so good.
Sometimes that's what happens. It's not my fault. It happens. Listen, y'all, thank you for tuning in with us. If you got us on the replay, we appreciate you. Please do subscribe, but most of all, share this episode with someone that you know, someone that needs it. I've put up our link. If you want to have a session with us, you can go to bit.ly/tap-chat. We're available for group sessions as well. So if you'd like, I would like to meet with you, the two of you, and also my daughter. We can do that for you. We could do that, right? That's something that we can do as well. The grounding is important. The breathing is important. The tapping is important. And the talking, the
Communication.
not hiding. Super, super, super important. So, Morgan, thank you for always being willing to be so real. These are not easy topics. Some of the topics are tougher than others. We're going to get some lighter topics in March, little light stuff, little light things. But, when you're talking about getting to after, there's something you're trying to get from. So we're here to help create that bridge to help you walk across. It's not easy when you're on a tightrope. So we want to get you off the tightrope and onto strong ground. And this is the only way we know how to do it. So thank you for being here with us. I love you, Morgan. You're like awesome. And I know you're going to be leaving soon on a trip. So listen, be careful. Be careful. because I want to make sure you get there nice and safe.
Thank you. Love you guys so
I
much.
love you guys.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
See you soon. Bye.